Aloha, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Triple F podcast, Faith and Family First. And on the show today, we are going to talk about the wonderful Constitution of the United States of America, because this is Constitution Week. So let's chat about that. Jim Hochberg, welcome to the show.
Eva Andrade, welcome to the show.
Thank you. What would we do without, I don't know what I would do if you didn't show up for a show one day. And what would you do if I didn't show up for a show one day?
I think both of us would simply make a show.
Yeah, because we would talk to you, listeners and viewers, because really that's what this is.
Actually,
we are chatting.
I would do something else because today I learned this studio has a popcorn maker. And it's like a theater popcorn maker, and it makes really good popcorn. So I think if you didn't come, I'd just go sit in there and eat popcorn.
That's right. So now all our listeners and viewers, they're all of a sudden having this urge for popcorn. So I don't know. I know that we're celebrating this week Constitution Day, and I made the joke, or I started the show saying Constitution Week, but actually I think we should be celebrating Constitution daily. Don't you think?
I actually live Constitution life.
I know, and
that's what I do.
And for people that don't know, Jim actually gets choked up when he gets that statement. Give me liberty or give me death. Right?
If you read the whole thing, it's amazing.
I know, because I remember I was at a workshop with you or something. We read the whole thing, and you said that just tears me up. I mean, that's what we're asking you today, listeners and viewers. What do you think about the United States Constitution? I mean, the Constitution that people died for. People gave their lives to build a constitution, to create this great nation that you and I live in. And, I like to always start with the preamble, because
Before you do that, though, what if some people in the audience don't even have one? We got some.
We do. And we're going to be doing this throughout the show today. So listeners on K-Light Radio and KESU Radio, we have got little pocket constitutions that for free that they were gifted to us by Jim Hochberg, and we want to make sure that you guys get a copy of this. So if you're watching this, if you're listening, and you would like this beautiful little Constitution of the United States, then send me an email at info@hawaiifamilyforum.org, and we will get one in the mail. It will cost you nothing.
Okay? And then you can actually read it, and so you'll understand when she wants to talk about the preamble, where it is, if pre doesn't give it away. But you'll also be able to really dig into the things we're going to talk about today.
Yes. And those of you listening and watching, if you don't know, Constitution Day is September 17th. We've been celebrating it. We're going to talk about the history in a little bit. But I want to start with the preamble because I love it. And for those of you around my age, you're going to be having visions of Schoolhouse Rock. Because for those of us memorizing a lot of things with Schoolhouse Rock, you will know that most of us memorized the preamble because of Schoolhouse Rock. And for those of you...
That Jack Black movie?
No, Jim, it's before your time. I mean, it's after your time.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What is Schoolhouse Rock?
They were those little videos that in the 1970s, like Conjunction Junction, what's your function? And
I was in high school and college, college,
and
high
Jim,
school and college.
They did the preamble to "We the People in order to form a more perfect union."
Never heard it.
Okay.
I thought you meant that Jack Black School of Rock.
No. But for those
that
of
was
you,
a good movie.
I know there are many people smiling right now around my age that are going, "Oh my God, Schoolhouse Rock! That was so awesome." I'm going to put the link in the YouTube, as we always do, the references for what we talk about. So go check it out if you want to see that video. I did send it to Jim Hochberg, but obviously he gets a million emails, so he did not see it.
When did you send it to me?
I sent you early this morning.
Oh,
but
I've
anyway,
been in court today.
So
obviously, I had to leave early for court.
So everybody that grew up in the 1970s-ish, Schoolhouse Rock, check it out. But anyway, this is the preamble to our wonderful Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general warfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the the Constitution of the United States of America.
And I have been using that to open some of the seminars we've been doing recently because I want people to own their government.
Jim, you've been doing this for the last 20 years. We the people, who owns the government, and then we'll get into the story of your neighbor's truck. This is
True.
This is what we do. So, Constitution Day is something that we celebrate every September 17th.
Do you know what actually happened on September 17th?
Well, that was actually where they all met and signed the Constitution.
That's right, but it wasn't official until they all ratified
that they had to ratify it. But what I do want to do is talk about like how we got there, because there wasn't always a Constitution Day, but back in 1940, Congress passed a resolution that authorized the president to issue an annual proclamation designating the third Sunday in May as I Am an American Day.
Oh boy, they wouldn't have that now, eh?
No, I'm telling you, you're going to love this. Okay, so many towns and cities at the time they celebrated this new holiday with special ceremonies. There were several states that issued proclamations and all that. And then in 1952, Congress moved the I Am an American Day observation to September 17th, right? And renamed it to Citizen Day. And fast forward to today, and now they call it Constitution Day. But I thought what would be, because we all have been reeling from the recent speech of the President of the United States, I thought we would go back to a speech or a letter that was written by Harry S. Truman. And this was in 1951 on I Am an American Day. And for those of you that want to check it out, go ahead and check on the link. But I just want to read certain parts of this, Jim, to get your thoughts on this.
Now, Harry Truman is the president that dropped the atomic bombs in Japan.
Yes. So there are people going, really? So, but if you also remember, because of what was happening with the war, there was a high amount of pride in being a United States citizen at the time.
Absolutely. Rosie the Riveter. We had all kinds of things. Buy bonds to fund the war. Sure.
Kids that before they would start school and they would say the Pledge of Allegiance, they meant it. There wasn't any, excuse me, that bothers me, I'm just going to do a silent prayer or whatever at the time. No, these people realized, or at least at that time, because our country, they believed, was worth fighting for.
Yeah.
And I know there are people today that are saying our country is worth fighting for. And then there's other people going, well, what country? And then there's other people saying, well, what should the national language be? Or what should be the ethnicity or whatever.
Until we're completely inclusive, there's nothing worth fighting for or something like that.
Or something, right? And that's never going to happen.
But you can't be inclusive. You know why? Complete inclusivity would mean honoring everybody that's already in prison for whatever they did.
I know. It's absolutely crazy. Well, so these are the words.
Could you imagine having I cut my mother's throat pride parade? I mean, that's like sick.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So let's just be proud to be. So this is entitled I Am an American Day, 1951. Whereas the United States of America, built by millions of devoted, faithful, and vigilant men and women of many races and creed, carries high the torch of liberty, not only to guide our own people, but also to light the way for other freedom-loving peoples.
Amen.
I was waiting for that, okay? So whereas in this tense period of world history, our nation must strengthen its unity of purpose through increased devotion to the fundamental principles of individual liberty, equal opportunity, and justice for all.
Except MAGA Americans.
I'm telling you. This could have been written for today, Jim. It really could
should have been.
Whereas it is especially fitting at this time that each and every citizen of the United States, whether native or naturalized, should renew his faith in the ideals that form the foundation upon which our country has been built into a mighty force for the advancement of freedom's cause.
Amen, brother.
Now, therefore, I, Harry S. Truman, President of the United States of America, under and by virtue of the authority vested in me by Congress through Public Resolution 767, approved May 3rd, 1940, and it gives the statute, do hereby designate Sunday, May 25th, 1951, as I Am an American Day, and do set aside that day as a public occasion for the recognition, observance, and commemoration of United States citizenship, and for the special recognition of those of our youth who have attained their majority, and those foreign-born who have become citizens through naturalization during the past year. I'm sorry. Are we talking about people that have become citizens? So, wow, they were even talking about that in 1951. I am shocked. But here is the important paragraph. I also urge I hope some people are listening to this, Jim.
I am. Hurry up.
I also urge federal, state, and local officials, as well as patriotic, civic, educational, and other interested organizations, to arrange for appropriate ceremonies on or about May 20th in which all our people may join, to the end that both old and new citizens may have a fuller understanding of their rights and privileges and their obligations and responsibilities as citizens.
Can I juxtapose something that I just signed up for?
You may.
So that is incredible. However, Harry S. Truman's proclamation has no place here. And I know that because I just signed up for an 8-week course on hillsdalecollege.com.
And check
or
it out,
org or
people.
whatever it is. It's
Check
a
out
course
Hillsdale.
by Victor Davis Hanson, a Hoover Institution conservative, very smart guy. He wrote a book that this is an 8-week series about his book, essentially examining how individual Americans and all of us together have given up our citizenship voluntarily over the recent decades. So that wasn't the problem when Harry S. Truman was doing his thing, but it's definitely the problem with, we can say, the non-MAGA Americans.
Absolutely. And I really want to encourage people to get a copy of the Constitution. And again, if you want a pocket Constitution, info at HawaiiFamilyForum.org.
If you want one, tell us what Harry Truman's middle name was.
Okay. Or
tell us his middle name in the thing, or in a text
comment,
or something.
text, email, call, whatever.
And if you get it right, you get a thingy.
Yep. So,
and if you want to double your chances, guess the name, but then say you really want one anyway.
Yes. Okay. So now that's the I Am an American Day. So fast forward to 2004, and then actually one of your buddies, or I know you follow a lot of these senators, but Senator Robert Byrd, he did a rider in the omnibus spending bill to change the name to Constitution Day, and also provided funding for all schools that receive federal funds to actually do education on Constitution Day. So what that means is if you are attending a public college who's receiving federal funds, you should know about Constitution Day, and you should be provided with all the resources to study our Constitution. And we're not talking about the rewritten Constitution.
Right.
I mean,
boy, you know what? If we had known about this earlier, I would have said on an earlier show, if you want me to come to your school that receives federal funds on Constitution Day and talk about Constitution Day, I'm available for free. But it's too late.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, because one of the things, as you mentioned earlier, has happened is there's a lot of angst toward the Constitution. There are people who say the Constitution is an old document and we shouldn't follow it. In fact, Rasmussen just released one of their little studies in July of this year, 2022.
You mean like a poll?
Oh, they did a poll, yes. And so so here's a couple of their responses. Now, this is about the Constitution. So the first question was, do you have a very favorable, somewhat unfavorable, or very unfavorable opinion of the U.S. Constitution? 58% very favorable.
That's good.
24% somewhat favorable.
That's good.
10% somewhat unfavorable. 4% very unfavorable.
That's interesting. You know, there are some minority protected classes that hover at around 4%. I wonder if it's them.
Well, I'd love to know too. And if you're listening to this right now, I'm curious how you would have answered that question. And here's a second question. Do you strongly agree, somewhat disagree, or strongly disagree with the following statement? The U.S. Constitution is a document rooted in racism.
Totally disagree.
15% strongly agree.
15, that's not too many, but it's too many.
20% somewhat agree. 16% somewhat disagree. 44% strongly disagree, and 5% are unsure.
See, now if you're unsure, that means you haven't read it. You need to get one.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the point. And what do we always say? Go to the source.
That's
Don't
right.
listen to someone else's interpretation of the Constitution.
Correct.
Pick it up and read it yourself. And you know what? Check out the Federalist Society. Check out all these other groups that this is what they do. They write stuff about this. Talk to attorneys that do constitutional law. Hey, you know what? There are some attorneys out there that do not agree or that say that the Constitution is a living, breathing document and it should change.
There are judges on the Supreme Court of the United States that have said that.
Yes. So if you want to really like have that discussion, then you're going to find people on both sides. But go to the source first. Check out the Constitution for yourself.
But can I share my response to the living, breathing Constitution?
Yes, you may.
So even those U.S. Supreme Court justices who used that philosophy of a living, breathing Constitution to make decisions on constitutional issues in ways that did not reflect what was actually written in the Constitution. So my response to them is, look, if it's not written in the Constitution, there is a way to get it written in, and it's not by judicial decision, it's by amendment. So if you don't like whatever it does say on an issue, you need to do what it takes to get the constitutional provision amended to reflect what you do like. You don't just judicially fiat a change because you like it better.
Which is perfect segue for this final question that I want to share. There's other questions in there, but these were the three I wanted to focus on. Do you strongly agree, somewhat agree, and again, this is Rasmussen, somewhat agree, somewhat disagree, or strongly disagree with the following statement? Oh, Jim, I just know already. The U.S. Constitution should be mostly or completely rewritten. 12% strongly agree. 19% somewhat agree. 14% somewhat disagree. 49% strongly disagree. And 6% are not sure. Now, that means half strongly disagree, but the rest could be talked into it.
No, half strongly that it should not be rewritten.
Yes.
Right.
So, I mean, this is where we're at. And their margin of sampling error is minus 8 percentage points with a 96% level of confidence.
Correct. Now, the interesting thing, though, what the Supreme Court's role is to look at particular issues in particular cases with real humans having a dispute that needs to be resolved somehow based on the rights provided in the Constitution. Every case isn't like that. But the ones that deal with the Constitution, that's basically what's going on. So the Supreme Court is made up of humans that get nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate over different decades, but it's a lifetime appointment. So they go on in their 40s or 50s and they stay until their 80s or 70s or 90s or whatever. And in between, the old guys leave and the young guys come in. And so the makeup of the court at any given time depends on who they are. And who they are depends on who the president was and who the Senate was, because that's who suggested them. So when the Supreme Court is trying to decide these constitutional questions, they have to have reasoning that ties back into the Constitution. So one of those reasonings was living, breathing Constitution, et cetera. The current reasoning, interestingly enough, is it part of the tradition and history of the founding era and the Civil War era? And if it's not, then it doesn't belong as a constitutional interpretation. So we've actually, with the current court, we have a constitutional interpretation group called the U.S. Supreme Court that is really going to try to pull back some of the radical requests to see things in the Constitution that were never written there. They're going to pull them back because if it wasn't part of life at the founding or in the Civil War when the 14th Amendment made it applicable to the states, then it's not in the Constitution. And I love that.
Well, and you bring up a very good point, because what have we heard, especially in the last year, right?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes. So we hear things like, for instance, just recently, Congress leaders who are saying that the decision regarding abortion
the Dobbs
took away
decision.
took away the constitutional right to abortion,
which it did not.
I know that, but I mean, but this is what people are saying.
And the answer is, in 1973, in the Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton cases that were together, Harry Blackmun, as the author of the Roe case, created a constitutional right that wasn't there and wasn't tied to the history and tradition of the country. So when Dobbs came around in 2022, the Supreme Court that we have said, is the right to abortion tied to the history and tradition of our society at the founding era and the Civil War? And the answer was very clearly no. So they said the federal judiciary and the federal Constitution doesn't give you, it never gave
That's why we're
a constitutional right to abortion.
And that's what we're going to say 5,000 times.
Get
read
one
the
and read
Constitution for yourself, because when Jim and I started this podcast, we had to explain to our own people on our side, that people were saying, I don't have to take the vaccination because it's against my constitutional rights. You remember that?
I do.
And we had to explain that I don't think anywhere in here does it say anything about vaccination.
Okay, so let's go back to how the federal government's scope changed from the beginning. In the very beginning, the Constitution was adopted and it listed enumerated powers of the federal government because the colonies didn't like the monarchy in England telling them what to do from above. And after the Revolutionary War ended, when there wasn't a constitution, they struggled to cooperate together as separate states. They wanted to coin their own money and do all kinds of goofy stuff that made it hard to be a country. And that's why they came up with the Constitution. But they were very concerned not to have a federal government that was usurping the state government power, because governance by the closest local level is the best form of self-government. And so the federal government wasn't supposed to be doing things that were not specifically listed or enumerated in the Constitution itself. But around the First World War, after the Civil War and all that stuff, we started to need more money in the federal government to do things. And so Woodrow Wilson convinced everybody to amend the Constitution to allow for personal income tax, which now all of a sudden there's a lot of money in the federal government, even though it was a very small tax and it was promised never to be more than, I forget, 3% or something. But all of a sudden now everybody individually is contributing to the bank account of the Congress. And so they started growing the government. And then by the Second World War, we had a Department of Social Security. Mm-hmm. We had a Department of Health. We had a Department of all this stuff, which is not enumerated in the Constitution, but it's under the General Welfare Clause. Now, if the current Supreme Court was looking at the challenges constitutionally to those administrative departments that happened in the Second World War era, they would have asked the question, was federal expansion of federal power under the Constitution part of the tradition and history in the Revolutionary War period? They would have said, no, this is unconstitutional. That's not the way it works. So now we have the Department of Education, Veterans Affairs.
Yes, yep.
I mean, everything.
Yep.
And that's why you have to vote, because you can vote for people that are not going to let the government keep expanding.
Okay, now, once again, I'm holding the pocket Constitution, because I know those listening on the radio have no idea. So I'm holding the pocket Constitution again, people. Jim, I want you to ask me what I'm looking for. Ask me.
How to amend the Constitution?
No.
You're looking for abortion?
Nope.
I have no idea.
I'm looking for where it says in here about the separation of church and state.
Oh, well, that's not in
Jim,
there.
I can't find it in
No,
here. Why is
you're
that?
not going to.
But people say,
because
Jim,
we know, you and I have talked
say,
about this for decades. When they had adopted the Constitution and the First Amendment said Congress shall make no law.
And who's Congress again?
Congress shall make no law. That did not apply to the states. That only applied to Congress. But the various states had favored religions, like Maryland was
Catholic.
Maryland.
Yes.
Pennsylvania was
Baptist.
Amish, I think.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Quaker.
Oh, okay. Wait, okay.
Yes. Anyway, so the Danbury, Connecticut Baptist Association, which I'm guessing was an association of Baptist churches in Connecticut, Danbury, Connecticut, wrote a letter to President Thomas Jefferson. And they said, we're a minority church in Connecticut, but currently the state of Connecticut lets us do our thing. What's going to be the impact of this First Amendment on our religious freedom that we currently have without this constitutional thing? And Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter back in 1802 saying the Constitution erects a wall of separation of church and state so that Congress isn't going to be interfering in private religious stuff in the states. And it has been twisted by the Supreme Court to indicate that the religious segment of society can't participate in the government. But then that's being pulled back now, too.
I know. So you mean to tell me if I read this cover to cover, I'm not going to find in here where it says people of faith should stay silent and stay in their house and not ever leave their property or talk about Jesus in a public place ever?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
I read it a lot.
Okay, you're sure it's not in here?
There. It's not even in a footnote.
And this funky First Amendment that everybody keeps quoting. This horrible First Amendment, and people, I'm joking, right? So don't send me emails going, Eva said.
And there's no such thing as hate speech,
well, I'm telling you, if we go based on definitions
all we have
today,
is free speech.
I don't know. But anyway, this First Amendment, it's another thing is that like a lot of teachers they'll do polls among their students, right? And it's interesting how when it comes to the First Amendment, people will say, okay, it's freedom of speech. But there are more things in that First Amendment. Can you name them all?
Well, there's freedom to exercise religion, freedom from establishment of religion, free speech, the freedom to assemble, the freedom to address your government for redress of grievances.
Come on, the one you have the biggest problem with. You agree with it, but then you have to argue with them all the time.
I forgot.
Freedom of the press.
Oh, freedom of the press. We don't have any press anymore. I forgot about them.
Yes, freedom of social media.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like if you could write that in there and mean that press means social media, think about all the silencing that's going on right now with people. If you don't agree with somebody, shh.
So we've got 2 minutes. Can I take a minute?
You may do whatever you want, Jim. So, I believe in the freedom of you to exercise your freedom to use the last 2 minutes.
45 seconds.
Okay.
So today I was reading proposed new regulations from the chief of police in Honolulu on carry permits from Second Amendment rights. And I have a case in federal court on Second Amendment rights. And so they've issued these proposed new rules. And it's very interesting. They want to be able to refuse a carry permit to somebody who appears to have animus against certain protected classes that they objectively think, not subjectively, a reasonable person would think would lead to violence, and therefore they can deny you a carry permit, which, I don't know, that might be okay. But the sources of the information, according to this proposed rule, includes information on the application, which includes you do have to waive your medical privacy, and they get to ask if you have like psychologists or counselors or whatever.
Which makes sense.
Which
you
is
don't,
perfectly
you don't want
fine.
someone like that carrying a gun, right?
But listen to this. It also includes information otherwise available to the general public, which is social media posts. So if you post things for fun and you don't really mean them, they're going to come back to bite you on a carry permit.
Ah, okay.
Now, you can take the last 30 seconds.
All right. So September 17th, Constitution Day. I encourage you to wear red, white, and blue. Go around, get copies of this pocket constitution. Tell your pastors to order these pocket constitutions from wall builders. Check it out online. Every member of every church should have a constitution, right, with their Bible.
Absolutely.
Like, share, subscribe, and
support
this ministry. And we will see you next week when Jim and I start talking about the census and how that affects Hawaii. We'll see you next week. Mahalo, everybody.
Aloha.